morning. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Friday, March 28th, 2025. It is 11:15 a.m. and we are back in committee to review, I guess I would not call it revised, but a new amendment. We're withdrawing the other amendment from Representative Donahue. We have Becky Wasserman from the Treasurer's Office here as well. Thank you for coming. And we also have on the screen Rep. Dickinson, who is on screen. So with that, and all of you should have, is it posted there?
Yes.
It's posted on our website, but also Nigel sent something out at 10:28 a.m. to the entire body. So you have a couple of places to look. Rep. Donahue.
Thank you, Representative Van Donahue. I'll try to talk very quickly so we can move ahead. We've heard from the secretaries of this leaves the shall, does not change it to may as the first amendment did. What this does is remove the change that was proposed to go from 8 to 10% on the maximum allowable automatic, not acceleration, I forget the word, but the automatic, the auto escalation of the rate. And we heard from the Secretary of State's office that this would not be taking effect till 2027.
Here's the Treasurer's Office.
I'm sorry, who I meant. The Office of the Treasurer. That it would not take effect till 2027. And if it's actually more pressing to make the change in order to move it ahead, that they can certainly approach the Senate. I think the issue for us is our due diligence in terms of responsibility to ensure that Vermonters are protected. Government Operations passed this bill in 2023. I spoke with the chair of Government Operations. They were never approached by the Office of the Treasurer to look at any amendments to the program. It was brought directly to the Appropriations Committee, but in fact, it's not an appropriation under the normal appropriations bill because it does not have anything to do with appropriations of state money. This would increase that auto escalation without our knowing or our being able to take the time to evaluate the quality and content of what those notices would be. I've shared concerns, I think serious questions that have arisen about the quality and content of current notices about the program as a whole. I think the goal to help people and encourage people to save money for retirement is superb, but I don't think we want to unintentionally take away people's personal choice about saving money and leave them unaware about the savings or about this proposed increase in the auto escalation. So what I'm urging is that we simply not change the status quo on this in a way that could add to the risk of people having unintended amounts of their payroll amount withdrawn without fuller review by the Government Operations Committee.
Thank you. And we have Becky Wasserman from the Treasurer's Office, who's able to do a little research since we knew this was going to be coming. Becky, please.
Yes, hi, Becky Wasserman, State Treasurer's Office. So I did review our program rules, which actually does have the auto escalation provision starting a calendar year after a participant is onboarded. So that, just giving some context, that the program just finished the launch and we had onboarding is ongoing. So at the earliest, it could be in 2026, but I think for sake of keeping everyone on the same, starting that auto escalation at the same time for everyone, we would start in January 2027. But just to sort of follow up to some of the points that are being discussed, I think, our position is that we actually think that it is really important to get that 10% in now as the program is starting. And I think there's several reasons for that. I actually think it is more helpful for savers to have that communication now that is, what our intention is. And there's a few reasons for that. I mean, I think, we know that to save for retirement, you actually need to be taking out closer to 15% to ensure that, an individual is not outliving their money and has a similar standard of living that they would had they been working. And so right now, obviously the program provides savers choice about what they can afford at this time, but we do think that it's really important to communicate that sort of 10% is closer to what someone should be saving for retirement if they want to have a dignified retirement. And so while we are not going to get to that 10% for a few years, it'll ramp up 1% per year. I think it's important to communicate as we start to think about our communication to savers about this auto escalation, that is our goal. The Secure 2.0 Act, which received bipartisan support in Congress, actually makes this a requirement in private plans. So it's mandatory auto escalation of at least 10%, but not more than 15%. So I think in some ways, by not increasing Vermont Saves to 10% and having that in our statute, we're sort of putting savers in Vermont Saves at a disadvantage if you are not enrolled in a workplace retirement plan. So this plan is actually geared towards trying to make the Vermont workers who are not offered retirement savings plan through their workplace more financially secure. So I wouldn't want to put people at some footing that is not similar to what we're expecting private employers to be doing. And I think the last point I would just make is that, this is very evidence-based. I think if we wait a year, we're going to come back. There's a lot of research that shows that this makes a big difference in decreasing the retirement savings gap. Vermont is part of a consortium of states that have state auto IRA programs. So we joined a consortium that is led by the state of Colorado. And it also has the states of Maine and Delaware, and Nevada is in negotiations to join that partnership. And so, we are sort of operating along with those other states in rolling out these programs. This is a model that is sort of tried and true around the country. There are 11 operating state auto IRA programs. This isn't, I think amongst all, everyone in this industry, this isn't something that we feel is harmful to savers. Is actually meant to be a helpful way to, make sure people are financially secure in retirement. And this change has been rolled out in other states. We are in regular contact with everybody, and there's been no issue with how this has been communicated. And in terms of how we communicate right now with savers, right now we have close to 1,000 employers who have registered for the program. We have close to 1,000 funded accounts in the program right now. And, I'm in contact with people regularly about this program, but I've received very few communications from anybody about about the communications that we have sent out. I answer questions about, maybe like system problems or making sure that, they understand the program requirements and what is mandatory under the law, but we have not actually received, a lot of feedback that folks are not understanding what we're communicating. But I do think that it's important to notify savers sort of sooner than later that our intent is that 10% number, because I think we don't really want to send the message that we think 8% or less is sufficient for retirement. I think if we want to meet the policy goal of the program, we want to be sending the right message about what is, what you actually need to have a dignified retirement.
So I have Jim and then Rep. Donahue.
I'm inclined to support this amendment because it didn't sound like it needed to be done this year. And I guess I would urge the Treasurer's Office. I appreciate the need to be uniform with other states. However, I would encourage the Treasurer's Office to first bring such requests to the Committee on Government Operations, which originated, I believe, the Vermont Saves program, or at least reviewed it and advanced it forward, because sometimes we're at a disadvantage in House appropriations with knowing the details of some of these plans to put the language in. So I will support the amendment that's before us.
I just want to briefly follow up, pointing out that I think the presentation we just heard, the discussion is precisely the discussion that needed to be and needs to be in government operations, not before the Appropriations Committee, when it's not about an appropriation even.
I guess I don't see it, since this program has just started, I don't see a disadvantage of leaving it as is. You can always come back another time to see how it's going here, and perhaps suggest a change at that point. It's something higher.
No,
I didn't know if you were.
I know.
So I'm wondering, Becky, what the disadvantage is of leaving it at 8 for now.
I think the disadvantage is just how we are communicating to savers. I mean, we have a communication plan, outreach plan, we're planning ahead for all of these things. So, if we're communicating that 8% is the maximum that it can be raised to, then, that I think it's just sort of the policy intent of the provision, which the Government Operations Committee did. They passed the auto escalation provision. I don't think there is some, I don't think that the auto escalation itself is at issue. And so I guess the issue is, how you want to communicate to folks about, what eventually our goal is for them to be saving for retirement.
John.
I guess one of the questions I have, Becky, the communication that's gone out is about the program, and this is where it sits right now, correct? So communication's gone out to, up to like 8%, correct? Or not?
The communication has gone out right now is about employers were communicated to about registering their employees, and then employees were communicated that they were enrolled in this program and that they can sort of opt in and out at certain percentages. We do provide information about how to figure out their investment options and contribution rates and such. We, in our rules, have to communicate about, we have communicated that there's an auto escalation provision, and we will have to communicate before we make any, 1% increase to savers. So, we're, the amount that we increase, again, is not going to be communicated to them until next year if they're, they have to be in the program for at least a calendar year. So we have not sent out a specific communication about this auto escalation provision yet.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it feels a little last minute, and we didn't hear about this when we were talking about the budget. It's just here. And while I support the move to 10, given what you've said, Becky, I think that I am okay with this amendment in wrestling with it, and let the Senate take the testimony and make the decision.
I've been waffling back and forth on this as well. I can see both sides of it. It is a shame that we didn't have testimony on it. I don't think any of us really this wasn't where we were focusing on. We saw the VT in Vermont, and I think that's where my head was. So it was, so I guess
I don't feel we're here to have a policy conversation. on the day of third reading of
Yeah.
the bill.
Yeah.
That's.
Any other comments from folks around the table or Lynn?
Yeah, I would like to say that I got language with the treasurer's material that he gave to us when he came to testify on his budget. And it was included and I read it and I didn't really understand that this had this implication of the policy that we are now talking about. And I included it. There were 3 pieces there that were language that he gave me, which we did include, which I did put into the budget that Grady wrote, that basically took their submission.
Yeah.
I think we really have to make sure that the treasurer does go to the policy committee first before they come to us, because they would have had a more thorough examination of this and they would have had and they would have just dealt with it last year or the year earlier. So I think that we really, I think just coming to us is just something that we have to make sure that the treasurer understands. He has to, if he has a policy decision, he has to go and reviews that with the policy committee that works with it. I support the amendment from what I've heard today. So I think that it won't go into effect until 2027 anyway. So I think we have time to be able to talk about it more closely and with more detail.
Well, and the Senate GovOps could take it up
Yes,
immediately
yes.
and address it. If it needs to happen this year, they might be able to do that. I don't know if you've been in touch, Becky, with Senate GovOps at this point, or with the office has.
I can ask our policy.
I guess it's sounding like it might be a good idea for your office to have some communication with Senate GovOps. That's where I'm hearing things lean here. Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, thoughts? If not, is there a motion?
I would favorably like to straw poll on the amendment.
I think it's 2.1.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Draft 2.1. Okay, any further discussion? If not, the clerk may call the roll.
Representative Lumley,
Yes.
Representative Dickinson, well,
Yeah.
can't.
Do you want to vote?
Can't.
I'll vote yes.
No,
Yeah.
she can vote one of her days. This is one of her days.
Yes.
My days, well, yes.
So, you know,
It's
this is
up
our,
to you.
yeah,
It's up to you. Do you want
Yeah.
this, do you
I'll
want
vote
your
yes.
days?
I'll count it as one of my days.
okay.
Representative Harrison,
Yeah.
Representative Kaczynska,
Yes.
Representative LaRoche. Yes. Representative Rovicki,
No, I'm not ready for this.
Representative Nigro.
Yes.
Representative Squirrel, yes. Representative Stevens,
Yes.
Representative Yakavoni,
Yes.
Representative Shy,
Yes.
Representative Rovicki.
No, I think he already voted.
I didn't hear from him.
Oh,
Okay, 10-1.
okay. And Rep. Nigro will be presenting this on the floor. Thank you for stepping in. You can buy him a drink sometime, Lynn. And all
Thank you,
right, so
Thank you.
Thank you, and Ledge Council, thank you, Becky, for coming in before we all leave. Since we are now, you're welcome to go. Yeah. We will see what we have on Monday, but you all, as far as I'm concerned, don't need to be here until the floor, 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning. So enjoy your weekend after the floor today. And just thank you again. We're on the home stretch here.
Thank you.
Madam
Good job,
Chair,
everybody. Enjoy your weekend, Lynn.
yeah, are we offline?
Not yet. I'm going to go up live just right now.
Okay.